Leave it to Aaron Rodgers to take a perfectly nice preset concept that we had for today's show and preempt that with his own semi-announcement. I don't know that I would go too strongly with a term, that he said this is pretty much his last year in the NFL. He said that today on ESPN. And okay, I mean, he signed a one-year contract. I think everybody knew that was going to be the case when he did. And this somewhat reaffirms it, but by throwing in the pretty much, he can pretty much say whatever it is that he wants to say. In addition to that, he can say whatever he wants to say at any point. It's his decision. Just if Rodgers has some spectacular season, all right? I'm not predicting this, but if he goes, 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns and the Steelers win the Super Bowl, do you think he's going to pull a Jerome and just call it a day? I don't think so. I don't think so. So I don't know. I don't know how much there is to really discuss and debate about this. I don't know that it's some big surprise, nor do I know that it's something that's definitive. If it is, we'll get into it. If you feel like it's a big deal, we'll get into it. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is the double shot of Steelers show that we do every 4 p.m. Chris Halleck is on vacation. The boss is still on vacation. I am here all by myself, as you can tell from the camera being a little bit off. Really don't know what I'm doing, but that's okay. I was doing some strange things, so I had to reset it to some other camera. And then when I reset it to some other camera, it moved way back. It was too close. And then I physically moved it way back. And then whatever, here we are. The butthole gets us started with one gift for the day. Always appreciate that. The object of today's show was to be, negative. There isn't really another word for it. Yesterday, we invested the entire program in why the Steelers can be good enough to contend. What are the things that you actually liked about the roster, the makeup, the everything that has you believing that they can contend? And I mean contend literally. I don't mean be competitive occasionally. I'm talking about being not necessarily, Chiefs, Bills, but maybe Ravens, okay? Somewhere in that territory. If you felt that way, then you spoke up. You had something to say, and some of the responses were terrific. But as promised, today was going to be the opposite. Today was going to be why you feel that they can't, why that's just a bridge too far, why that's just a chasm, a canyon, okay? So that's what I want to hear from you. Not ifs, not hopes, not fears, but actual stuff that you don't like about this team that you feel this team is going to have as an albatross, basically. So we're going to do that. Mike in Texas wants to know if I got the Starbucks. Yeah, I just came from over there. Look at the damage that's done by this ridiculous heat. It's like feels like 102 out there. This is just across the street. You have to understand, this is just coffee, and this is just whipped cream. This is the whipped cream saying, and forming these little icicles on the way down. That's from just crossing the street. So we do have air conditioning in here. Carol starts us off by saying, I'm prepared to be negative about Mason's kind of being treated like the redheaded stepchild. Yes, you always are, Carol. I'm not sure that really fits the theme, but if you want to say that the Steelers won't be contenders because Mason won't be the quarterback, you can absolutely do that. It's your show as much as it's ours. Charlie says, we can't have a number one defense without a better coordinator or more aggressive play calling. We will be lackluster this year. And I'm not sure what you wanted to say there. I think it's waste more of our talent. you're saying it, even though you don't use the word, you're saying you want them to blitz. You want them to go after the quarterback. You don't want them to just keep hanging back, keep waiting. And that's what they've done as a defense now for a while, Charlie. It's been a good minute since Blitzburg and the great Dick LeBeau. And it's also been a good minute since the player, I believe, changed all that, and that was Stephon Tuitt. Certainly respecting his situation, so I'm not blaming him for anything. But when the defense lost Steph, the defense lost a lot of its teeth up front. And what ended up happening, I believe, I've never heard this actually, never been told this, just I believe, that the defense began waiting to see, what comes its way. Not Cam. Cam could just always be Cam. But when you look at the rest of these guys and you look at even the inside linebackers and the changing of all of them really around the league to different types of players, you lost your teeth. You lost your teeth. You can say you want that back, Charlie, but you got to support it with the personnel. And I don't, until we see Derek Harmon show that he's that guy who can get back there, and heaven knows I'm not laying the responsibility of being the next to it on him. But if he isn't, or if he isn't something approaching that, or at least in the spirit of that, it's really not going to change. Now, if it does, but today is negative day. Jerry says they have no second wide receiver. I'm with you. I'm with you. I know a lot of people are conveniently labeling Calvin Austin that because of the depth chart, and I respect where he is on the depth chart. It's not what I'm talking about. Whenever I say second wide receiver, I presume it's not what you're talking about either, Jerry. You want somebody who can fill that role, and you want somebody specifically who can fill in if DK Metcalf were to go down. That's a big ask of Cal. It's a colossal ask of Roman Wilson in his first real season out on the field. And I wouldn't even throw anybody else into the equation. My belief is that they're going to address it, but until they have, Paul comes in with the bad first quarter starts. And Paul undoubtedly is going to bring up the offense. He says it's been a problem for years. Then he says, especially on offense, even while Ben Roethlisberger was here, not sure what's going to change the team's prep or planning process to give us hope. I will remind that the defense last year led the NFL, and not in a good way, with the most points allowed in the first quarter, 112. No other team even hit triple digits. The Steelers were at 112. They are not a good first quarter team on either side of the ball. They're basically just good at special teams. They're good at special teams all the time. Matt says that Arthur Smith is going to get too cute. His play calling won't be to Aaron Rodgers' liking. The two will butt heads, and Rodgers will call the shots. I think you're going to see some of that, but the butting heads thing, let's not overstate it. Let's remember that the quarterback with whom Smith would be butting heads is Rodgers. And that's not – if you're two Rams, you'd rather be the Ram with the 4 MVPs and the first ballot yellow jacket and all that other stuff. So I don't know how butting heads it'll be. I really don't. I think the quarterback is just going to end up getting his way. That's what I'm saying, which might or might not be bad. I'm in no position to judge that right now. George Brownfield says, what a brutal damnation of the coaching staff that the Steelers are terrible on both sides of the ball to start a game. Yes, there aren't a lot of things that you can control in life and in football. But you can control your starts more than most things. From an offensive standpoint, you can actually script out your first 10, 15, even 20 plays. You can do that. In fact, you do. Defensively, you can come out with all kinds of fire and brimstone and TJ getting everybody all revved up in that little mini huddle that the linebackers do. You can do that. You can do that. You can't do that in the second quarter. You should be able to use both of those things to your advantage. John Baker says the quarterback sees what the OC and the DC can't. That's correct. That's correct. There's only one view that counts on a football field from an offensive perspective, and that's the one right behind center. It really is. There's nothing that he can't see there, and given his experience and wisdom and all that other stuff and football smarts, I would trust that view in the moment over the coordinator, and that's why I don't see it being something that becomes a really big deal for this team. I'll take one more of these before I take a brief break, in part to try to reset this camera because it's really throwing me off. Like I feel like I have to do like this tall thing to fill the screen. Dominic says, this is a good one. I'm still concerned about the youth on the O-line. Should be. But how do we feel about the depth there? Okay. If you say depth, I don't know if you're referring from 1 to 5 or if you're referring to beyond 5. When I think of depth, I think of who's going to come in if somebody gets hurt. And it's not going to be 2 through 5, if you follow me. It's going to be 6 through 9. I'm not crazy about the 6 through 9. I don't see a whole lot of, man, you want to get that guy in. The one exception, and I have a feeling that Steelers fans have just completely forgotten about him, is Ryan McCollum at center. McCollum came in for Zach Frazier. That was supposed to be a really, really bad situation for the Steelers. He was outstanding. Remember the running the Steelers did? And remember that they did a lot of it through and behind and around McCollum? Granted, those weren't the best opponents that they faced all season, but McCollum really, really did the job. Beyond that, I spent this morning's Daily Shot podcast talking about Calvin Anderson, the backup tackle, which, by the way, is a great way to get numbers on your show. People go, oh, Calvin Anderson, and they spread the word for their friends. No, it does not. If you ever get into the podcasting business, don't do entire episodes based on Calvin Anderson. But I did it for a reason. I did it because I wanted to illustrate how important he's going to be in training camp, even if you don't necessarily care about him or even know his name. Are you great at backup tackle? No. Are you great at backup guard? You have Spencer Anderson, who's there. But you don't have the way we've seen the Steelers have in the past, like guys who've had any number of years in the league and lots of starts to them, and you can just plug and play them if somebody else doesn't work out. Offensive line right now is just way too expensive in the NFL to be loading up the money that's involved, the cap space that's involved on year 6 through 9. So we're going to come right back in about 2 seconds. I'm going to see if I can make it from here to over there to fix this camera. And then when we do, I'm going to take a sip of the drink. This is going to be like the Flash, right? And then I'm going to be sitting here like nothing happened. So I'm going to back up the chair a little bit and get ready for this big, big moment. I have 37 whole seconds to do all of this. All right, bye.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Oh, I mean, I almost did it. The camera is not great. I need to get Myron more into the picture here. Let's get Mario over a little bit and Clemente, and I'll move this over in this direction. You can see the buses going by downtown. Everything's all set. I don't have to scrunch to be in the shot. I mean, it's not as good as if the boss were here, but, I'll have to deal with it. And I did take a sip of the drink. Swan says you can see more of the store. Solid. Swan, just come see us, man. Come see us. We're right downtown, 224 Fifth Avenue. We're open Tuesday through Saturday, 12 to 6, meaning the retail portion. It's not something we take super seriously. It's a headquarters for us for our writing operation. Obviously, the studio where we do this program and other shows. And what we do is the retail kind of helps take care of the rent and all the heavy duty AC that we have got rolling today. Tyler says, DK always holding down the fort. You love to see it. I won't be holding down the fort the second week of July. I'm going to be heading over to Serbia with my daughter to see extended family over there just for a handful of days. I can't take breaks longer than that. It's just the nature of the way this thing works. Jonathan says Dylan Cook as the tush-push quarterback could be fun. We can all invent different people who can handle the tush-push. My favorite so far is Darnell Washington, because even if he wouldn't necessarily get much of a push and go forward, he's not about to go down. It would just be a tush-push that lasts about a half hour. Preston says, I think this season we may see Washington more involved as he should be. You might not, Preston. Remember, today's angle is the why the Steelers can't contend. And but to take what you have here, I don't know that he will be. I think we've seen this set up before. Lucy's put this football down before, and we all go running toward it. This is the year that the tight ends are going to get this, the tight ends are going to get that, and then you get to week 3 and you don't even remember that the tight ends were on the roster. Shane Oates sees one reason that the Steelers might not contend is that they still employ Pat Meyer. He asks, hey, DK, what would have to happen for the Steelers to start looking at our offensive line coach instead of assuming that we wasted 2 first-round picks on tackles this year? That's it, Shane. Meyer's contract is up after this season. You're going to have to make a decision on Broderick in one direction or another. That's when all things would come to a head on that specific front. Daniel Pike says injuries. Now, I know that's obvious, but nobody talks about them before the season. General managers think about them in their planning. Nobody talks about them because nobody wants to talk about them, and that's understandable. Season comes along, and injuries end up being easily one of your top 2 or 3 factors, certainly depending on who the players are who get hurt. Snowman says that's a 6-hour drive to see you. I'm not telling you what to do, but there's a really nice city around us. You don't have to just come and see us. You can actually see, Snowman, what a city looks like when it's totally under repair and engaged in what amounts to a dress rehearsal. My kids were just here over the weekend. They're in their early 20s. And my daughter, who's now in New York, working on acting, she said it's like everything is changing. Everything is becoming new or different, and everything's under construction. And I said, well, that's life the year before the draft. We have Market Square is basically, it's not shut down. The businesses are open. And by the way, patronize them. Point State Park, fountain is off all year long. You're not going to see any shots, ball games, or anything. You're not going to see the fountain on. Why? Because they're trying to spruce it up, take it to another level in terms of the lighting that's being utilized so that it can be a real spectacle for the draft. Mellon Square, water fountains aren't on. Why? Doing something with the water fountains, doing something with the water. Or I don't know. I asked and I complained and whatever. But there's a whole new park that's being built over on the riverside, a gigantic park that spans all 3 sister bridges. Both sides are under construction because of that. It's going to be one gigantic park, if you can picture that. Downtown is heading toward places, as Greg points out, that it's arguably never been. That including the growth in residential and everything else here. It's absolutely amazing. Really is. I live here, work here, eat here, play here, do my job here, everything. Steeler South says, getting us back on track, do you think the NFL will be extra gracious with comp picks next year? The draft is in the Berg. I don't think that's really how it works. But maybe the more appropriate question is what can happen between now and the start of the coming season that might move Omar to take one or more of those expected picks that he'd lose. Let's say, for example, the 4th rounder that he's expected to get as compensation for the Titans signing Dan Moore. If he moves one of those now for a WR2 or moves a 3rd rounder, if it's a really, really good WR2, great. That's fine. Those count the same way. You're just bringing in a player right away. What's going to hold the Steelers back is the topic. Captain Grunch says making bad in-game decisions, not adjusting fast enough to the other team, the team not having people watching to challenge the player. Not he's basically going at Tomlin and clock management. And who's going to counter that? Anybody here? Is anybody here going to speak up on Tomlin's behalf and say, you know what, you're out of line here, Captain Crunch? He's actually really, really good at this stuff. He looks up at the scoreboard. And if they show him that play on the scoreboard on a road stadium, there's a chance, at least a chance, he'll make the right call. Let's hear it for all of the people defending Tomlin on this count. James Chamberlain says Tomlin taking points off the board and leaving potential wins on the field. Not sure what you're referring to exactly there. Batman says not being able to win in December will hold the Steelers back. Confidence is everything going into the postseason. I do agree that you benefit, not if you're the Steelers, if you're any team, it's a playoff team, you benefit from a nice little run up. You don't have to be rolling. You don't have to win every game. You can have one of those, if you've already earned your spot, one of those throwaway games in January where you rest all your starters. You know what I'm talking about. So the mojo isn't essential, but we have seen that it makes a difference. And we also have seen what it looks like when they fall completely on their face. Sean Evans says, don't give up on plays this year. Well, if that's not aimed at George Pickens, who's no longer here, I'm not sure who it would be aimed at. I don't see a whole lot of that with this group. Broderick Jones will do it, but not in that sound, that spirit, the way you portrayed that. He'll start off effectively with a block, and then he doesn't finish it. I don't think that's because he gives up. I think that's because he genuinely thinks it's done. He's completed the process. Michael, we're going to start turning this into a Tomlin bash. Mike T having the NFL pass him up with schematically and readiness. I don't know how you pass a head coach up in readiness. I do know how you pass him up schematically. I think there's an element of truth to that. I don't know that there is to the passing him up with readiness. Your team's either ready or it isn't. That's got nothing to do with, where football is in its evolution. Denny says Russ gave up on plays by Moonball. Russ isn't here. That's my whole response to that. I mean, Russ is somebody else's quarterback now. Let them do the Russ stuff on their double shot of, where is he now? Giants? Double shot of Giants. They can do that. Preston says, hope to be there for the draft. Would love to be present when they draft a potential franchise quarterback. You won't be alone, Preston. Arthur Rooney was giving some public comments today. Nothing super newsy or whatever. It was an event that involved some planners and Visit Pittsburgh people. That's our convention and tourism bureau here. And one of the things that he brought up, I think some of you guys might find interesting. I hadn't thought of this, which is nuts for being a downtowner. Because Pittsburgh is the most centrally located city to the bulk of the American population. And it actually is. Like, if you think about where we are on the map, first off, we're obviously not dead center. I mean, you'd miss us badly on the dartboard. That's somewhere, I think, even west of St. Louis. But if you look at where the population is, where the people are, we are the one city that is the closest to most of the population, because we get all the New York and all the Philly and all the Boston and all the Chicago and all the Washington and everything else that's in there. So there will be, and this, again, this was Rooney's point, not mine, cause to believe that this will be the most attended draft ever. Plus, we can handle it. You know, with respect to Green Bay and what a nice job they did and everything, Green Bay is a really, really small place. Pittsburgh is not. We can handle it. Downtown can certainly handle it. Our hotels can handle it. Our roads, our subway, our everything. We're gonna be just awesome at this. Mark my words. And you can stop here too, to 224 Fifth Avenue. My guess is we're gonna be a little bit crowded. Just a little bit. Preston says he's coming in from Arizona. That is not around the bend. Adrian pulls us back on track. Says we might be hampered by an unwillingness to do quarterback sneaks on short yardage plays for fear of injuring Rodgers. That's fair. I don't know that the Steelers have been great at the sneak since Kenny Pickett. Kenny was automatic on those. Remember that? Like, I mean, he wasn't overpowering people. He just knew kind of how to slither and become skinny and turn sideways. And he was just so good at it. I think Mason converted a couple, but other than that, you know, you don't have quarterbacks. Well, Justin was different. Justin was doing sneaks, but Justin really didn't have to do sneaks. Justin could just run around you. So I don't know if that would even count. But yeah, QB sneaks on short yardage. No, you're not going to be doing those with Rodgers. You know, Tortilla points out here that Mason Rudolph's head is made of steel, so he can quarterback sneak. Well, Myles Garrett's helmet proved that. AFL says, well, I have no idea what that means. I really don't even know how to read that. I'm sorry. You can try me again. I'm giving it an honest shot here. James Chamberlain says, I'll repeat it, DK. Since 2019, when Mason's the quarterback, the offense scores more points per game than any other quarterback on the roster, and that includes Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers. Now, I've seen James's handiwork on this. He has sent it to me. It's a diagram that's about as big as one of our walls here at the HQ. And when he says that he's better, has better numbers than Justin, Russ, and Aaron, he's referring to Aaron's production in that time period. Now, I'm going to throw in some asterisks on this as much as I am a proponent of Mason's, and I very much am. Rodgers had a 2021 for the ages, not for the aged, but for the ages. He was unbelievable. After that, he wasn't in Green Bay anymore. He got hurt. He got older, got a lot older. He came back last year and he was playing for a terrible football team. So, open minds. Open minds. Mr. Krabs says, who's minding the store? Nobody. I have to lock it up when I do this. If I'm the only one here, I have to lock it up. I have my back turned to the whole process. But if you're ever like in the neighborhood and you see that I'm doing the show, whatever, just come knock on the door. I'll stop in the middle of the show and just come back and open it up and say hi. It'll be a little awkward, but Mr. CJ wants to know why Cordero Patterson is still on the 53-man roster. That's the way he's wording this. I have no idea. I really don't. Unless it's just the only thing I can think of is, even though Cordero did not appear to have much of an impact on the special teams, the one thing that the Steelers will point out to you, and Danny Smith will point out to you, is that everyone still kicked away from Cordero. They fear him still even in the new kickoff format and everything. And Danny Smith, viewed that as something, a card that he could play that would help him mind that whole situation. Well, your kick returner this year is going to be Kenneth Gainwell. I don't know how much clearer that can be. It's been made clear to Kenny himself. So Kenny's going to do that. But if you'll recall also, there's two guys that have been back there for Danny Smith. So you're going to have one of the two fielding the ball. If they kick away from Cordero again, then they kick to Kenny. And maybe that's what the Steelers want. You follow me? I don't know. He's still here and he's still under contract, by the way. So maybe it's to see if they get through camp, without injuries or whatever else here. I think it's more a matter of, just it's insurance. Joseph says, I'll definitely be visiting your store when I go to my first Steelers game, DK. We'll have our doors, both of them actually, will be wide open for you. We'll be happy to have you. Dave Black says, quarterback play will determine the Steelers season. And while I understand that sounds like Captain Obvious material, it's also correct. It's also correct. Think about the impact on this defense that this offense could have. I know that's not easy to do because it's been a minute. But think about if the offense were to put together, 75, let's get greedy here, 80 snaps a game. And those guys were to be all fresh and you didn't have to rotate them constantly. And you had more of your best players on the field more often. It's been a minute. Then he says, how much will Calvin Austin get in return duties, or will he be reserved for the offense? He's going to return punts. And that's another reason he's going to be WR3, because there's also a snap count management there to be had. He's going to be WR3. Trust me, from my heart, I don't criticize Cal. Okay, I think the world of him. I just have information that this is what he's going to be, and that they're going to continue to pursue, and aggressively so, a WR2. Adam Renninger comes in. We're going to take a couple more today. This defensive coaching staff seemed totally unable to effectively utilize the safety group in relation to this very talented and fast inside linebacker group. Dude, you just handed me an entire episode, because I happen to share that viewpoint, and I happen to share the confusion specifically that you lay out here. And now I can multiply that several times over by having Minkah Fitzpatrick tell me at minicamp that he's expecting to be more involved. Having Deshaun Elliott tell me that he's expecting to be chasing more turnovers, meaning swatting the ball away instead of just tackling everybody. Although I was fine with him just having one of the better tackling seasons in NFL history. You see Landon Roberts get cut. Well, not cut. They let him go, being technical here. And you see Cole Holcomb, who is outstanding in pass coverage, being elevated now that he's healthy again. And you see the way this is going. It's almost as if the inside linebackers are going to be focused more on coverage and the safeties are going to be focused more on the stuff up. I don't know. I keep saying this, but there's nothing that'll be more interesting to me when the real drills, the pads, the 11 on 11 out there get started in Latrobe than to see what the safeties are doing down after down after down. It's going to be probably offering us the greatest glimpse of any potential changes on that defense. So I don't have an answer for you right now. I really don't. But I do expect that we're going to have one, let's say by the end of July, meaning about a week or so into training camp. Walter says, I'm not hearing enough about Y.A. Black, fears of him being underutilized. What can you hear Walter. There's nothing to hear. These drills, we actually will occasionally put these videos up for people to see. There's no news. There's nothing to be had there. The amount of things that occur in these drills, especially the hard contact positions up front, is infinitesimal, not worth judging. Black is going to be part of the mix. Black is going to be part of that rotation. I don't have any doubt about that. I don't think you're going to see him get buried. I really don't. But you wouldn't know that from anything that would have occurred at OTAs or minicamp. You won't know it really in the first few days of training camp in Latrobe. Christopher Sexton, with our penultimate question, says, we need a new defensive coordinator. The stars we have, yes, injuries, blah, blah, blah. But overall, our defense hasn't performed as well as they should. I don't know, maybe now with a better linebacker group finally in depth on OLB and maybe cornerback both. Your new defensive coordinator, Chris, will be your old defensive coordinator and will be your defensive coordinator from before that, because Mike Tomlin calls 100% of the shots on defense, not play calling. That is Terrell Austin. But as far as the defensive designs, the approaches, the attitudes, the schemes themselves, that's Tomlin. Captain Crunch wants to know if Primanti's is overrated. No. The only catch with Primanti's is you got to eat it there. Like, don't be taking it somewhere. Have it right. Sit down right there. Listen to Foghat's greatest hits or whatever it is that they've got going on. Teleport yourself into the 1970s. Look around at all the cheesy drawings of Bradshaw and the Steel Curtain and all those guys, and have it right there. Who would overrate it? It's outstanding food. And we've never actually had a partnership with them. Dave Black says he loves Foghat. Come on, man. If you name more than 2 songs, you get a membership for life here. And don't be looking them up either. You can't name Slow Ride and you can't name Fool for the City. And go. Dead silence. Nobody knows a third Foghat song. What a diabolical thing that was to do. And see, the longer this goes on with nobody answering this, the longer it becomes obvious that all you did was Google it. It doesn't count. James Fairfield says, we have one in Erie. We love Primanti's. You do not have one in Erie. James, you have a replica. That's what you have. There are replicas everywhere. There's one original Primanti's, and that's in the Strip. And then there's the one we have right here downtown, which is just a half a block away. In fact, there's a really good chance that's where I'm going next after this, because I'm still alone and I still need to feed myself without the boss. Matt says he likes to get the capicola with egg and double meat. I just walk in and I say 2 words: roast beef. That's it. George says that the replicas are all just fine. Yeah, you know what? We were driving to cover a Steelers game in Baltimore. And I want to say they have one in Hagerstown, Maryland, of all ridiculous places. And you have no idea what that's like for somebody who's a total city Pittsburgh dweller to walk into something in Hagerstown, Maryland that's purporting to be a Primanti's. You park the car, which also just really begins to kill the vibe, because you didn't walk there, you didn't whatever. You actually had to park. You had to drive and park at the thing. Walk inside, and there's a hostess. At Primanti's. And I go like this, like I turn around, like I'm ready to walk out. The guys with me are holding on to me. Nah, don't leave. And they had purple stuff. They had purple stuff on the walls because they were close to Ravens territory. And I was like, just no, man. No. And then a lady shows up, waitress, after we're seated at the table, and she's passing out menus. Like, what is this? I don't want a menu at Primanti's. I just want the roast beef. Who are you people? It was not at all a pleasant experience. And I know they have one. I think it's either 1 or 2 in Fort Lauderdale. All frauds. All of them. All frauds. with hostesses and menus and all kinds of nonsense. No, okay, no. If you want to go to Primanti's, you're either going to come to the one here in Market Square, or you're going to go to the original one in the Strip, or you're just pretending. You're just pretending. All right. Last point is being made by Randy today. It says that Darius Slay needs to acquire some interceptions this year. Defensive turnovers are a must. For anybody who doesn't know, Slay graded really high on coverage, but had no picks. Whereas Dante Jackson graded very poorly on coverage, but had 5 picks. So the Steelers, without even thinking, boom, make that change. Why? Because one impacts more snaps. One impacts more of the season. And the Steelers didn't like what they felt that they had to do with Jackson out there. And there's another variable too. Dante just kept having to fight through that back issue. And he did. And there are games he played, and he and I would talk after the game where he was messed up. And he was trying to do it with a smile. And that's also something that, nobody's going to kick him on the way out the door, but you're going to get an upgrade at that position. Defensive turnovers are a must. I would rather have coverage than picks. I really would. All right, guys, when we come back, we're going to take care of a little bit of business here at the Double Shot of Steelers. The sip breaks. That's what we're going to start calling these things. Yeah, Matt says Dante Jackson and Cam Sutton last year, no difference. Well, Cam was really bad. And that was largely on the head coach for bowing before his veteranosity and refusing to take him off the field in favor of Beanie just because Beanie happens to be an undrafted free agent. Beanie had coverage issues too, to be fair. So anyway, we're going to take care of a little bit of business here, as the dumpster chickens point out here. Oh, there was more than I thought. See, when there's only one of me here, I can't go through all of these at the time. So don't ever feel like you're being ignored if you contribute to the program. Charlie K dropped 5 gifts in for everybody. Michael Vitti with a couple of bucks there. Our friend the Butthole is always good for a few of these. He kind of scatters them throughout the show. Russell came in with a gift. Kerry always comes in with a gift. The barber came in with a gift. Russell with one. Barber came in with. Look at Barber. See, Barber's doing this too, just like the Butthole does. They come in so that I can say their names 100 times, and I love them for it. I can say I love the Butthole on this show, and I don't know if we're going to end up getting flagged by YouTube. I can't believe I just said that. This is why, by the way, this individual leaves all these here just so he can trick me into something like that. Danny Blee says, sign up, people. It's $1. I guess we can keep trying. I really blew it with this 3,000 goal thing, and probably going to need to adjust this. We're not going to hit 3,000 by the time the Steelers get into training camp. And that was the goal that I'd set several months ago. We're somewhere around, 2,300. Well, that sounds like it wouldn't require some big leap. The thing that'll hold us back is that the shows between now and then won't be some of our most viewed shows because nothing will happen. Whereas when we get to training camp, our numbers go like this. So maybe what I should do is change this goal to say it's 3,000 by the time the football flies. Meaning the real football, the one in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Does that seem like a nice, fair thing? Is anybody for that? Let me know. I don't want to do that one unilaterally. If you want me to take the L publicly, I'll do that. I really don't care. Sergio says, I'm not for the negative side. I like yesterday's show better. Well, that's the balance, though, Sergio. And even today, we got a lot of positive stuff here. I don't think people are anywhere near as down on this team as they were just a little bit ago. Yeah, James Richard says with 40,000 subscribers, we're not quite there. We're like about 500 short. You would think that it would be easy to get to 3,000 paying members. We'll get there. We'll get there. Preston says it sounds doable to do that by the kickoff. See, somebody's trying to get in now. You see that? They're trying to come in here. I'll be right there. Look at me holding up here. I'll be right there. Anyway, here I'll let you guys go. All right, we'll do this again tomorrow, and my wife will be back, and it'll all be happy time and everything else. All right, let's do it again then. All right, bye.